Dana White's Zuffa Boxing are coming to the UK with Chris Billam Smith, Ryan Rozicki, as well as a Matchroom card up north with a few cancellations, but the fights are still going on. All of that today here on the preview show. And straight into the action, starting off with Zuffa, which, I'll be honest, we have spent quite a long period of time on this fighter.
Have we?
On this podcast, questioning Dana White's antics in boxing, questioning some of the stuff with the Muhammad Ali Act, questioning some of the stuff that they want to do with Zuffa. But to give them credit where credit's due, you look at this card from top to bottom as a British domestic card in Bournemouth on Sky Sports, there's quite a lot to enjoy and not a huge amount to complain about.
I cannot believe what you have just said. Are you trying to get in? Have you signed up for the accreditation portal right now?
Do you know what? I think genuinely though, it does not distract from any of the other stuff I've previously said about Zuffa, I've previously said about Dana White. I still think the fact that they're trying to change the Muhammad Ali Act is completely unacceptable. I still think his vision for the sport is one I don't necessarily agree with. I still think questioning the 4 world titles that we've got and saying I'm going to come up with my own solution, which is my own world title, is just part of the problem. It's not a solution. But if I park all of that for a moment and just take this card on face value, there is a number of entertaining fights that I'm more than looking forward to watching this weekend.
And I can't believe that I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah,
that we're saying that we're looking forward to watching a Zuffa card. I think this may be as well the first, barring Jai Opetaia, that we're actually sitting down and previewing a full Zuffa card. And I think it's because we've got that sort of domestic intrigue of fighters that we've seen in the past on, let's be honest, on boxer shows. And this is a heavy sort of boxer fight feel here with, as you said before we started filming, you got Billam Smith, former boxer fighter, Jack Massey, boxer, Lee Cutler, boxer, Sam Hickey, boxer,
Stephen McKenna,
box. You can understand the theme in here, and it is literally a boxer show that's turned into Zuffa now. So I'm looking forward to it, like you said, and it's good to see Chris Billam Smith back out. And I'm not being funny, he's been on the sidelines for some time since fighting Zurdo, and it's good to see him back, obviously back in Bournemouth, and I'm just looking forward to the whole week and, seeing Dana White and talking about Bournemouth and talking about Zuffa being in the UK and taking over potentially. But I'm not being funny, Billam Smith, he's in a somewhat tough fight, I feel on Saturday night. Rozicki's got that sort of style of a come-forward fighter, and he's got a completely different style to what Billam Smith is all about. Billam Smith's all about taking his time, working out the distance, staying behind his jab and all, whereas Rozicki just gets down to business. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if Rozicki can get that out of Billam Smith, of fighting his fight instead of fighting Billam Smith's fight. So yeah, I'm interested, I'm intrigued, and yeah, I can't believe that I'm saying that I'm looking forward to a Zuffa show after all of the antics that we talked about in the past, and they rightly stay there. The comments that we made about Zuffa in the past, I think we can stay and we can say we still back those views and we still back them and say it's not right and all, because the thing I don't like this weekend, again, the fighters won't have any sponsors on them. That's the thing I don't like.
It's an interesting, because it's a weird part of
for some fighters, business. For example, Aaron Sutton, that's how he gets sort of the money outside the ring. This is his sort of real big fight of his career, and he ain't got no one there to sponsor him. And yeah, it's a bit disappointing. Hopefully they're getting paid well. But yeah, sort of Zuffa, you're looking forward to the card, but then you get in the back of your mind what they're actually doing to boxing, and you're going, it's not right.
Yeah, no, I know absolutely what you mean. And yeah, to jump back to Chris Billam Smith, I think, like you say, Ryan Rozicki's a really interesting opponent. I think he's previously fought up at Bridgerweight momentarily. He's come back down to Cruiserweight, had a lot of success at Cruiserweight, but probably never really properly stamped his authority at the top of the division.
He's got a good draw mind against Peralta.
Yeah.
Peralta, tough Argentinian.
And then you look at someone like Chris Billam Smith, and I find it increasingly difficult to sort of to really nail down the genuine level of Chris Billam Smith. And I say that because of the Zurdo Ramirez loss and the comprehensive nature of that loss. And I know David Benavidez is a different monster in his own right, but I felt in that fight going into it that Zurdo's physical acumen at cruiserweight would just be too much, and it was
Yeah.
quite the opposite. You look at the Brandon Glanton fight for Chris Billam Smith, where it was a good performance, and then you contrast that with the Opetaia maybe didn't look his best against Brandon Glanton, and you go, okay, well maybe he is at a top level. You look at that win against Richard Riakporhe at Selhurst Park. You look at the Lawrence Okoli fight. You look at the Mateusz Masternak fight, the one he won the world title for, and he's got big wins on his record. But I still don't quite know. So I think this is another good test of his ability. And I believe Vidal Riley is being ordered as the mandatory for the IBF. So he'll be fighting for the IBF in the not too distant future. And a world where you can have a fight between Vidal Riley and Chris Billam Smith at cruiserweight for a world title, an all-British fight, I think it's a really intriguing one. But like you say, first and foremost, he does have to get through Ryan Rozicki, and it won't be a walk in the park. No. This is a genuine litmus test of his ability.
I watched the gloves are off between him, and Rozicki seems to be an interesting character, and I think his whole game plan has to be to get in there and just rough up sort of Billam Smith and get him on the back foot, or bring him into his fight of, in the clinches. I'm just hoping that Billam Smith now, that layoff hasn't affected him too much, because Rozicki, the sort of fighter that if he does get him into his fight, it could not play into the hands of Billam Smith. But you rightly say about Vidal Riley and all of that. Again, though, with the Zuffa contracts, the Zuffa belt that everyone wants to win in boxing now, that you can buy from your local supermarket, probably.
Smith's Superstore.
That's it. Alongside your WWE belts and UFC titles and all that. Surely Billam Smith's only got one fighter on his mind after this on Saturday night, and that's Jai Opetaia. The guy that's contracted to Zuffa, the guy who's got the belt in Zuffa, hasn't he, Jai Opetaia? And didn't Billam Smith fight Brandon Glanton?
Yeah, that's why I said they both fought. They both fought Brandon Glanton. He fought him in April on the first on that Eubank Ben card, and then Opetaia obviously fought him more recently.
And we saw what happened there, man. Brandon Glanton had a lot of success in that fight, and if he didn't tire, it could have been a different story. So, listen, Billam Smith's got to be on it on Saturday night, and it's not an easy fight, and that's the intrigue in it. And I'm looking at this whole card that Zuffa have put together. And I'm going to praise them again. I can't believe... I hate this when we've got to do it. I'm praising them again because every fighter on the card has got a winning record. You don't see that often in British boxing, so full props to them. And just hopefully that main event now lives up to the sort... It's not a 50-50. I think it's a 75-25 sort of fight for Billam Smith. But I think it's a decent fight, and it's a fight that will be good whilst it lasts, maybe, because Rozicki's going to have openings that Billam Smith can probably exploit, and we'll make our predictions at the end, but if that plays out as I expect it to, then it could be an early night for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like you say, it's an intriguing one, but I think it's one that as a British boxing fan, as Dana White and Zuffa, as Chris Billam Smith, you'll be looking at and going, we should be winning this one if I am to return to the levels that I've previously shown, obviously as a world champion. After beating Mateusz Masternak. So, it's a really interesting one. But like you say, that the positioning of the Zuffa belt and what that means, and whether or not fighters actually want to fight for it, and the fact we are getting a slightly strange sort of contrast between... But
Dana White wants to work with him as well now.
This is the thing that's... And if it's difficult to then see how all these moving parts fit together, but... there is interesting fights there. I don't know if we will see Chris Billam Smith, Jai Opetaia. I don't know if maybe the co-main event on this card in the form of Jack Massey, Clarke is possibly an audition for, winner fights Billam Smith. Could be an option as the sort of outside of Vidal Riley, who is the top cruiserweight coming out of Britain. I think it's an interesting fight. But I think Jack Massey, like I said, Jack Massey, Clarke, is a lovely little co-main event. Both those fighters have kind of shown some real quality, but had a few setbacks in the meantime. And it's an opportunity for one of them to go, no, I'm still here and I'm still making noise. And for the other one, probably, unfortunately, to maybe struggle to come back from that.
To make that hard decision, I think, it's a great co-main event. But I want to point out one more thing in the main event with Chris Billam Smith. when you heard about Zuffa and their sort of talks about coming to the UK, I thought Billam Smith wasn't the name that came to mind with signing with Zuffa. I would have expected, other fighters to come first, but
perhaps Conor Benn being the probably more notable
Conor Benn
one.
was the flag bearer of it and controversially did it. But Billam Smith, I thought wouldn't have. I thought Billam Smith perhaps would have stayed with Boxer and built something. But like I said at the start, there's a theme here, isn't there, with fighters that want to fight on Sky Sports and on BBC, I think. And perhaps that's gone into the mind of Billam Smith. And also the money probably is a lot better with Zuffa, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's it. That's good in a way for Billam Smith to be with Zuffa now, and hopefully he can be that sort of guy that can show British boxing that it's okay to come over here and sign, and it can allow if Billam Smith can come over and sign for him, then God knows how many more prospects and youngsters are going to be signing with Zuffa moving forward. But going back to that co-main event, when it was announced, you sort of looked at it and you went, huh? You went, okay, that don't make sense, but I'm going to watch it. And that's a 50-50, I feel like, because Clarke's coming off losses, in Monaco and Vidal Riley, both, he fought, I think in Monaco he comfortably lost, but against Vidal Riley, he showed great heart and all. And for Massey, he's just out to prove that he's still got it and he's still capable. And I think that's for both of them on Saturday night. It's just showing that they've got something left in the tank, because for the winner, albeit they're signed with Zuffa now, they're probably British level at best now, maybe European pushing. But for the loser, like I said, it could be that sort of hard decision where you look at it and go, I can either pack it in now or I just take fights against sort of up-and-coming fighters, for example, a Pat Brown, and that being that sort of guy that you got to get through to make that next step up. So, yeah, that fight's got intrigue as well as the main event.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really interesting because Clarke, obviously, at one point in time, pre that Mosquera fight, was very much kind of riding the crest of a wave. He was in the conversation with Vidal Riley as one of the top cruiserweights in this country, as was probably Jack Massey at the time, and Chris Billam Smith probably was just at the top of that because of his world title that he held, and it's all been kind of shaken around a little bit recently. But that Mosquera fight in Monaco was a tough night for him.
Yeah.
And then the Vidal Riley fight, I think Vidal was always the favourite in that one. And
it just showed levels.
The reality of the matter was it was a brutal fight to take as a British title fight for Chev Clarke in terms of the ability of Vidal Riley, but it was a great payday. It was a great opportunity and one you don't say no to.
No, exactly.
And now he's got an opportunity, having been a decorated amateur, having been, shown real quality at the pro level, to start to build himself back up. And a win against Jack Massey, who again at one point in time probably would have been considered one of the top cruiserweights in this country. It's a good way of doing so. And like I said, I always quite like when there's a co-main and a main event within the same weight category. I don't know why. I always think it's quite intriguing. Like when you sometimes get like a heavyweight fight, for example, that's, heavyweight world title fight at the top, and then the second one you get some people who are just kind of fending to try and get up at that world level, and it's a kind of past, present, future situation you get sometimes. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other one, and this is slightly interesting. It was something I was looking at on BoxRec, is that you've got Lee Cutler fighting Aaron Sutton, as you mentioned, a local fighter we know about. But they're fighting at middleweight, which is a division that Lee Cutler hasn't fought at previously. And obviously it was a conversation point when Zuffa first came into the sport about which weight categories they would and wouldn't recognise. And it's been slightly complex because they have signed fighters outside of those weight categories, notably Richardson Hitzins, who's a light welterweight or junior welterweight rather than a welterweight or a lightweight that they recognise. And this one's at middleweight, which is not a fight that Lee Cutler's fought as a junior middleweight previously. So it seems that maybe this card, where you're not working with the same sums of money, you're not maybe working with the same egos as you are with some of the fighters over in America, that we may be starting to see the vision that Zuffa have, rightly or wrongly, of of fewer weight divisions up at the middleweight division, and it's a decent, intriguing fight in that.
It's a good fight, and it should be actually quite a decent watch. I feel Lee Cutler, another Bournemouth native as well, so he's going to be in front of his home crowd. But like you said, this now seems like we're going down the model of the UFC. We're going towards with the weight categories being as little as only a handful they want. Hopefully, we get to a point where they actually realise that can't happen, because some boxers want to jump up and down in weights a lot of the time, and you can't really do that if there's big separations in the weights. So perhaps that could be a mistake by Zuffa, but
I suppose at least they're sticking by it. Whereas
no, exactly.
Previously, we've seen...
Well, with Hitchens, you rightly said with Hitchens, that's making the signing of going, right, are they staying with what they've said, or are they going down a different path now? And it goes back to, like I said, with Dana White now talking about working with the organisations. Are they backtracking a little bit more now? But
is it a case of these things take time and they're building it step by step rather than trying to completely rewrite the sport in one fight, and then people go, this is too far attached from what.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
What I like. Exactly.
We'll find out on Saturday night. If Aaron Sutton wins, then perhaps it wasn't the right idea. So who knows? But I tell you what, another fight, the heavyweights, mine, Harvey Dykes against Ivan Disco. Whew.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup.
It's a matchup that no one saw coming and doesn't really make that much sense, in my opinion, because I'm not being funny. Harvey Dykes, this is his first real test, and I'm not being funny. I'm looking at his box rec. I've pressed on the wrong one.
Yeah, I mean, he's not got the
he hasn't got the resume that sort of
a particularly strong resume. And Ivan Dicko's only coming off the loss against Jermaine Franklin.
Yeah, but he's
lost. Who is a top fighter? There is an interesting.
But he hasn't claimed a title yet, Harvey Dykes. So
no, I mean, fair enough. I think it's what you were saying, where obviously it's slightly more complex because this time the British fighter is on the home side, obviously because of location wise. But they very much are putting competitive fighters as the away fighters, as opposed to traditional journeyman or beatable fighters. Aaron Sutton is someone who's challenged for the British title, I believe, or certainly British title eliminators.
Correct, yeah.
And
Commonwealth, maybe.
And he is fighting as an away fighter rather than it being Lee Cutler versus a journeyman, or Lee Cutler versus someone with a losing record or a number of losses on their record. And I think this one's probably similar, where Ivan Dicko is a decent heavyweight that only has one loss. And instead of fighting a gimme fight, they're giving him someone who is game, who is going to turn up and try and win, with the hope. It's similar to something that like Top Tier have done over on DAZN, but obviously on Sky Sports here for Zuffa.
It's a tough night mine for Dykes.
I think so, yeah. But the idea is it's a better fight for both parties than it would be just fighting a journeyman.
Exactly.
So I take that one. Stephen McKenna's an interesting one as well, because obviously he previously lost to Lee Cutler. There's been in some exciting fights. I mean, he's in one of the most entertaining fights we've ever watched up in Barnsley against Joe Laws.
Mental.
And again, he's in against a fight with a winning record, in a fight you imagine is going to turn up and try and win. And there is a risk that this night turns into a really entertaining night of boxing that possibly has one or two upsets across it. I'm not sticking that on McKenna necessarily, but
no, I don't think for McKenna, but
I'm
looking at that Cutler Sutton fight, and I'm looking at that with intrigue.
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing fight. I think Jack Massey, Chef Clarke is a gimme fight. Yeah. Either one of those could have
Sam
it.
Hickey, Todd Tompkins as well. Battle of the unbeatens there. So
yeah, I mean, again, Sam Hickey is 4-0. So the idea, the general expectation is that he goes in there against someone with a losing record, someone in there to give him rounds, to give him experience.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. They're giving him someone who has winning record, is going to turn up and try and win. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. But either way, it should be, in theory, a better spectacle than perhaps sometimes we see.
Yeah. And listen, it's good to see boxing back on Sky Sports as well. We saw it with MVP the other month with that all-female card, and hopefully now this can start becoming the norm of boxing on Sky Sports. Otherwise, that subscription that you pay for might not be worth it if you're a boxing fan anymore.
Yeah, we it's always. I mean, I suppose if you've got a Sky subscription, then you go, oh great. If you don't, then you go, oh well, I wish all the fights were on DAZN, etc. But I think a little bit of competition and a little bit of variation in the sport.
But we've only got
always healthy.
Back in the day, we had Sky, BT, ITV, Channel 5.
Yeah.
We had BBC sometimes.
DAZN.
DAZN. What else did we have?
PBC, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, that's the other one that we had with pay-per-views.
You just have to get a mortgage out for those pay-per-views.
Literally.
Oh my.
Now we've got DAZN, Sky, BBC in Britain, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Which ain't too bad because you don't have to pay. Well, you got to pay for one of them, but the one's quite cheap with the BBC free-to-air and all. That comes up with a little symbol in the back to pay your TV license. I've seen that they've done that quite recently. So
yeah, no,
pay your TV license.
I do.
I know that's just a warning to people.
It's a nice, clever.
Otherwise, we may lose it.
It's true. Jumping over to DAZN actually, and credit where credit's due to Matchroom. Obviously, it's quite interesting that once again we're getting a sort of Matchroom versus Zuffa. We've seen it previously with Boxer when they went to BBC. They try and go up against a Queensbury Matchroom show,
but they didn't last weekend.
Free to air, no, but
in all fairness,
it was an attempt, and I'm not saying that that's the case. It might have been the only date that the venue was available for, but I refuse to believe that Dana White doesn't know what he's doing. But it is, fair play to Matchroom. They've kept this card on despite, a double cancellation of fights, and it's upgraded Josh Padley onto that main event, and a great stage for him to continue what has been a really impressive rise since that fight against Mark Chamberlain back in Wembley Stadium.
Phenomenal win. Still can't believe that he pulled that win off back in Wembley, and then obviously went on. He's been on a great run. Obviously, putting that Shakur Stevenson fight to one side, I think he just took that fight for a payday and did quite well in it. Good to see him back out. But the one thing I'm looking forward to, I didn't even think about this with Matchroom keeping it on. There's no surprise they've kept it on. They want to come up against Zuffa now on Saturday night, and I can't wait. I hope the journalists that are going to be interviewing Eddie Hearn and Dana White can start stirring the pot between them, because
if you can try and get them both on FaceTime, just either side of the interview, that would be quite fun.
Now they're going to try and book him in at the same time to get him on the same show, not with Simon Jordan, hopefully, but with someone else. No, it's actually a decent card as well. I feel like in Sheffield, you've got Sulaimaan, who's going for his first pro title. You've got Troy Coleman, Aaron Bowen. That's a phenomenal fight at 10 rounds. Leo Atang's back, who is probably going to be looking for a much better performance than his last outing. And Adam Maca,
Ed Hardy was as well as come over from GBM.
I know. But what's up with GBM?
Well,
because we haven't seen
they're
them,
no longer on DAZN.
and they're working. I wanted to ask this the other week because Greides Kruis, the Dutch guy that GBM had, was fighting.
Gone on to Boxer.
Have gone on to Boxer, the light heavyweight. So
yeah, it seems that they've moved, I don't know what's going on, to be honest, but they're no longer on DAZN, and therefore the likes of, I think I saw Taz Nadeem is now with Black Flash. Ed Hardy's now fighting on this one up in Sheffield, and I really like that. He's a good local fighter. He's got a lot of support. He's an interesting character for Fight Week. Yeah. So I'm really happy for him. But yeah, it's interesting to see. That's maybe one less pieces. I think maybe this is a conversation point.
Do you reckon they work with
for
Boxer?
Another time, where you've seen that top tier and Johnny Clarke is starting to say, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this without a big sponsor or a big deal. So it's difficult for them to keep competing, and maybe GBM just, they had a lot of cancellations on big shows. They had a lot of
you went to one,
misfortune, in Sheffield. So maybe there is just a case of the money's dried up and it's bide your time until you can kind of come again. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really happy that Ed Hardy's on there. And like you say, it's for a card that has lost two really exciting, really interesting fights.
Put Galal Yafai and Dalton Smith as well on top of this card. I'm not being funny. It's probably more watchable than the Zuffa card, maybe.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the better domestic cards we've had this year. The unfortunate fact of the matter is that's not the case. But Josh Padley in his own right is an exciting fighter, and Aqib Fiaz won't be a pushover. But
it depends what sort of Fiaz turns up, though. I think.
I think
it can either be a sort of competitive fight over 12 rounds, or it could be a demolition job by Padley.
Yeah, but I think for Padley, when you look at it, obviously that win against Mark Chamberlain put him rankings-wise really sky high up in the division, which is why that fight against Shakur Stevenson last minute made sense, because he'd inherited that WBC silver belt off Mark Chamberlain. But now he's dropped down in weight, he's gone to full-time, and he's beginning to show his quality again and again. He's got some big wins on his record. He's got some good performances on his record, and the opportunity to pick up that EBU European is just in like we've seen with Dalton Smith, it's another step in the right direction.
Defend it now.
It's another step in the right direction of just building up. Once you've got that European, then you can start to look at your Commonwealths, or you can start to look at your maybe WBC silvers.
Because he's fast-tracked it, hasn't he, technically, Josh Padley? Because
he's done it in an odd way.
Not being funny, against Mark Chamberlain, you wouldn't have thought... Well, he was in there not to win, I don't think, that when they matched him. He was in there to win, but when they were matching it, they thought Chamberlain... So, he's probably fast-tracked himself away from the domestic scene all of a sudden, and, has climbed into sort of European level. And, I expect him... Like I said, I expect a decent Fiaz to turn up on Saturday night, but I think even a decent Fiaz with the momentum that Padley has got, certainly coming off a knockout win as well, or TKO win in his last fight, he's going to take some stopping. Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to kind of have a look at this fight and match up the levels is in their shared opponent in Rhys Bellotti, which Josh Padley came out favourably from and Aqib Fiaz didn't. So when you look at it like that, then of course he is probably the favourite. With that being said, I think it's a step up on his last opponent that he won the European title with, the vacant European title against, and it's an opportunity to defend that, bide your time slightly, and look for an opportunity like a British title at that weight division that starts to give you a greater level of acumen. Obviously, you got Ryan Garner at the very top of the division. Yeah, I still think a Ryan Garner fight is a really interesting fight down the line, albeit it is a difficult test. Your bold shout when you made it off the back of the Shakur Stevenson fight. No, I'm about to give you some props here. When I got excited.
You got a little bit excited about Josh Padley, and you said that he is, off the back of the Shakur Stevenson fight, a future world champion. And he may well turn out to be. And certainly I think as more time goes on, that
it becomes more believable.
It becomes a less outrageous one than it was at the time. But look, he's doing the right things. He's beating the right opponents in the right manner, and he's taking the right steps. Do I think it's too early to be saying he's a future world champion? He's got the ability to be a world champion? Yes. But he's got the backing behind him, and he's currently doing the right things to certainly put himself back in that picture. And we've seen people give less against Shakur Stevenson. We've seen lesser performances from people who are expected more of than we saw from Josh Padley. So, yeah, you never know. But I'm not willing to commit myself to that opinion.
Even though that I got my words mumbled up that day, I'll still stick by it. There's one boy that I know of that has said that that's the worst take he's ever heard. He was in this chair the other week, actually.
At that time, it
was a bold... But when it happens... If it happens, I will be the most unbearable person the boxing world has seen, I think. I'll be like what happened last Arsenal? People didn't want Arsenal to win. I'll be like that sort of thing where if Padley does fight for a world title, you and Ben probably are going to go for the other guy. Yeah. Just because you do not want Padley. Yeah. So
the thing is, all jokes aside, I would be absolutely over the moon for Josh Padley if he were to pick up a world title. I think it would be brilliant for him. Yeah, exactly. It would be magical. But there's a long way to go, and there's a lot of tough opponents in that division, even just domestically. I think there's a reason why they're going...
You named one, Ryan
Garner, obviously Royston Barney-Smith off the back of that big win. You've got Jazza Dickens, you've got... who else have you got? Obviously Rhys Bellotti, Sulaimaan is the English title holder. I don't think they're going to be looking to build some of those fights. But it's how do you get him in a position? And Aqib Fiaz, you'd hope he would be able to get the win in that one, and it's another step in the right direction. And like
that's what you want as well with Padley now, is to continue. And like you said at the start, fair play for Matchroom for keeping the show on, because they could have easily gone and done a Queensbury and just gone, right, we've lost the main event, we're going to pull the whole card and
push it back.
Yeah. So thankfully they ain't done it.
Yeah, and the other fight you mentioned as well, Ibrahim Sulaimaan, Ibrahim Nadim, Ibrahim Darby, is a good fight. Sulaiman's been really impressive in his rise, and that first title, we've seen it with loads of the Matchroom fighters that came through at a similar time, the likes of Giorgio Vizioli, that have that English title fight, and it's that first kind of real test, and it is a step up. There's no other opponent really that you can have to prepare yourself for that one in many ways. But I do think he's probably got the ability to impress.
He's going the traditional way as well, Sulaimaan, because he's coming off winning the Midlands area title, and now he's fighting
for the
English against someone that has got the English title.
Yeah.
So he's not fighting for a vacant belt. So that's even another sort of test in himself. And yeah, it's an opponent that has fought more rounds than him and has won the English title in his last fight. I'm sorry, I was just checking then if he didn't win it against Kirk Jackson. But he's got some good wins over mine. Kirk Jackson's a decent win.
Yeah.
Hussein that he fought in his last fight is a decent win again. So yeah, it's a 50-50, but I like Sulaimaan. I think he's a great fighter. And you talk about, like you said, about those fights like Vizioli and all of them, taking those little baby steps. Another fighter on this card, Leo Atang. You want him to start doing that now, because you don't want him fighting people that are just taking fights for the sake of taking fights to just fight him because no one else wants to fight him. You want him to start picking up belts and titles, and hopefully that can start again after this weekend. But he's a fighter that this weekend is huge for him because he needs to look good on Saturday, albeit he's still young and all in his career. But if you want to continue that sort of hype train and that belief that he can be the sort of rival to Moses Ataima, I want him to get the stoppage win, because the last fight that he had was, you watched it and you just went, are we talking maybe a little bit too much? Is the hype too real?
I do think as well there is consistency is a skill in its own right, and sometimes it's difficult to continue to put in impressive performances, particularly when heading into that fight, 3 rounds I think was his longest fight. He'd had 3 first round stoppages, one of them coming in a 6-rounder, so he was meant to go more rounds, and he's now had that full 6 rounds in the tank, where he will have learned as much from that fight pretty much as he had in all of his other fights combined.
And it was a tough opponent
I think he's had 13 professional rounds leading up to this fight, and 6 of those came in one fight. 6 fights. It's difficult sometimes when you've got a real young, powerful fighter to get them in there with somebody that will give them rounds. We've seen it with Moses Ataima, but isn't going to be a complete pushover. And I think sometimes if that ekes a little bit too much towards a tough test, I'm more than happy for it, because if they're going to be the fighter that we are hoping they're going to be, that Eddie and Matchroom are claiming that they're going to be, then you need him to be getting wins. And
it was a tough away fighter he fought last time out, though, I thought. And he was deducted a point as well, in the last fight, which was strange.
I hope and expect he comes into this one with a bit more confidence in the rounds, in a bit more confidence in his tank, a bit more confidence in his ability, like you're supposed to do in these early fights, and just put together a complete performance, another 6-round complete performance, and then you can start to look at 8-rounders. And
titles.
Once you've had an 8-rounder, then you're looking at the likes of an area title or something for him, where he can start to build himself up as a real talent. But we know the heavyweight division's difficult, because the depth within that division of quality is arguably the deepest division in the sport.
And I feel like it's difficult as well when you get the big build as well. A lot of people are comparing him, whereas I think you should, calm down a little bit and let the guy develop and get through the rounds. And I expect him to be fighting for titles by the end of the year.
End of this year?
Domestic titles being maybe an area sort of title, and then the English maybe at the start of next year. Just get a belt around him. We saw a fight in Neath the other week. It was like a Commonwealth International sort of belt. That's an 8-rounder. A sort of title fight like that would be perfect for him. I just think get a belt under his name. That gives him confidence, and then see what he can do there. And I just hope that he can show a bit more this weekend and not look as frustrated as he was maybe last time. Because like I said, he was up against a guy that is known for being durable and tough, and it's likely to take you the distance. So I don't know what to expect from his opponent this weekend. I know he's French, so I'm probably going to have to back him because he's French. But if it's another 6-rounder, look good. Win every single round. Don't get frustrated. Look good and get a couple just look good, and that can be a statement in a way. A knockout's brilliant and great, but if you can look good for a full 18 minutes, then I think I'd rather that for him.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think, I always say this, and it's not always true, but generally speaking, when a fighter is with Matchroom, I have more confidence that they are going to be built in the right way, and that they are going to be tested at the point that they should. Some people say they're sometimes tested too early.
Yeah.
But
I
think,
like that though.
I think if you're talking about a fighter being one of the next best fighters in the world, then you have to.
And if you're talking about a fighter, and this is why I get it, because if you're talking about a fighter, fighting on the zone's a privilege for boxers, and being signed to Matchroom's a privilege. So if you're not willing to take those tests, get to the back of the line, you know, and there's other fighters that are fighting on the small hall that can easily replace you and take your position, and they're more hungrier than you. So he's in a blessed position as far as I'm concerned, being with Matchroom, fighting on the zone in every single fight, and you know, just continue now. And there's other prospects out there that get tested and get found out, and then don't want to get tested again.
But I do think Matchroom will
they have to
test Atang when the time is right.
2027 is a sort of when you let him go and fight the best in Britain, maybe.
Yeah, we've seen that with. I mean, Aaron Bowen is obviously on this card as well. He's someone who's
good fight,
who's been tested a number of times as a prospect. We've seen TMA Aiton's been given, you know,
Aaron
some
Bowen,
step ups.
James Todd, was it, in Birmingham?
That was a good fight.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, there's been some really good ones. So yeah, I think they will, and obviously we've seen it with the likes of Wong and
Gwen,
and Gavin Gwynn, and the other one, which
Jordan
was,
Flynn. No, it wasn't Jordan Flynn, was it?
Yeah, it was
Bilal Fawaz and
Bilal Fawaz versus. How's his name escaped me?
Jordan Flynn had a back and forth with him, didn't he?
But yeah, either way, they've certainly tested. That's a complete brain fart. We've been in the studios too long. Yeah, they test their prospects at the right times, which is something that I respect about them, and that I think it's important to do so. I think you have to.
Junaid Boston.
That's the one. Junaid Boston.
Yeah.
Another Northerner. There's just so many names in my head, and I couldn't find the right one.
That's embarrassing. Predictions?
Yeah. Yep, go on then. We'll start with the Zuffa show with Chris Billam Smith, Ryan Rozicki.
I can't believe we're making predictions on a Zuffa show, mate.
I know, it's crazy.
Mental.
So we'll start with Sam Hickey. Are we expecting Sam Hickey to do the business? Stevie McKenna?
Yes. Opponent's coming off a loss, so yeah.
Yeah, I think Hickey and Stephen McKenna will both get a stoppage victory. Lee Cutler, Aaron Sutton.
Lee Cutler. Either decision or late stoppage.
I think it'll be a Cutler points decision. I think that would be a good fight to watch, though. I think it would be an entertaining one. Jack Massey, Chev Clarke.
Chev Clarke. Points.
Yes, yeah. I would tend to agree. I think
it could be a bit like Lee Cutler late stoppage, but I think points is probably the safer bet.
Yeah, I see this one being a close fight. I mean, maybe one fighter will sort of take control of it.
Yeah,
but I see it being a close fight, and I just narrowly back Chev Clarke on it. And then the main event, Chris Billam Smith, Ryan Rozicki. I think Billam Smith will win this one reasonably comfortably, but I don't think he's going to get the stoppage.
No,
I think it'll be a points decision win again.
I think he's going to be quite stay at range. Don't get involved in Rozicki's fight, because once you get involved in that, it's probably going to be a harder night's work. What about Harvey Dykes? I
expect Ivan Deco to probably win that one. I think
he stops him as well.
We'll have to wait and see. Over up to Sheffield, Josh Padley, Fiaz being the main event. We'll start with, I mean, we would say Adam Maca, but he's fighting TBA, so
tough opponent.
We always know TBA's game. He's got 2 fights on the night. TBA. He's fighting Ed Hardy as well,
Fair
so
play.
It'll be tough for him that one.
Full credit to him.
Leo Atang, are you expecting the stoppage?
I want the stoppage this time around. I don't want to see him go the distance again.
Do you not?
No, I want the stoppage.
Fair enough. I think he'll get the stoppage again. I think he will do. Aaron Bowen, Troy Coleman, and we didn't give this one too much of a build-up.
No, it's a good fight.
It's a really close 50-50 fight. I still remember Coleman. The fight is escaping me now, but he was essentially down and out on his feet, and then he got the knockout late on against. I will get there. Bear with me. Bradley Goldsmith.
It was before the Ben Whittaker fight as well, wasn't it, for him?
Didn't fight Ben Whittaker.
Am I thinking of a completely different fighter?
I believe you are. No, he lost to Jimmy Sains in a four round stoppage. But before that he beat Bradley Goldsmith in quite dramatic fashion in the 7th round. He got hurt, I think, and then came back.
Okay.
And I think in this one, I think it's going to be a proper firefight. I think both men will be firing with venom, and I think we're gonna 10 rounds. I think we're gonna get a Troy Coleman stoppage. over Aaron Bowen, which I don't think is probably the bookies. I don't think will give you that odds, but it's what
Troy Coleman points then.
Do you think?
Yeah.
You're not and neither is backing Aaron Bowen, which is probably harsh on him. But
I've still got that James Todd performance.
Yeah,
in the
he's
back
been
of
in
my
some
mind.
good. He's been in some tough fights. It's been
I swear the
entertaining.
war mind.
And then Ibrahim Sulaimaan, I'm expected to do his business against Nadeem.
Points.
But I think he might stop him. He's a good puncher, Sulaimaan. I like him a lot, so I'm backing him to get a stoppage win on this one. And then Josh Padley, Aqib Fiaz.
Josh Padley, mid to late round stoppage.
I'm going to go Josh Padley points. I think he'll go the full fight this one. I think there'll be times where it looks like he could put his foot down and maybe just sees it out for the distance. But there's lots of close fights. We've whizzed through that one.
It's a good weekend of boxing again.
But it is an entertainer for British fight fans. Certainly, there's not a huge amount globally.
Double screening it this weekend, probably.
Do you think is that the play you're going
one on
for?
the TV, one on the phone, maybe.
Yeah, I can see the.
I don't know which one to put on the phone.
Ooh,
if you're double screening it, which do you put on the smaller screen this weekend? Do you put Zuffa, who arguably have got a more competitive card on the bigger screen, or do you put the zone on with Matchroom?
I think
this is the toughest question that we've asked.
The Zuffa show will be minorly more entertaining than the DAZN Matchroom show.
And is Andy Clarke commentating, so
yes,
there we go.
There is always that bonus that the DAZN commentary is not always to my liking. So I'll
really,
I'll
never said that before.
I'll possibly go for that way round. But if you guys have any thoughts on that one, then obviously let us know down in the comment section on both Spotify or YouTube. You can let us know either or. We'll always try and get back. Let us know who you guys think is going to win and whether or not you guys are a fan of this Zuffa card, or if, like us, you have a few reservations about what Dana White and the team are doing. Let us know. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week, where we will be reviewing all the fighting from this weekend and obviously previewing the weekend ahead. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.